So there's all kind of people in your database, and we know on average, people are maybe, about 6% of your database who owns a home might be selling it this year or within the next 12 months. And, got all these statistics. So my question is, how the heck do you tap the listing keg? Get all these potential listings in your database. How do you tap that keg? How do you go after those listings? And more specifically, this segment is all about how do you build urgency to kind of get people off the fence, not how you push them inappropriately, but how do you maybe build enough urgency and excitement to encourage someone in your database to list their house this month or next month instead of 6 months from now. Buckle up, let's get started. Which brings me to one of my most important and fun words ever, and that's urgency. Where the heck does urgency live? Well, first off, it lives in the mind of the agent, you. And what is that? That's you're motivated, you're excited, you've got something important to say, you want to share that information with somebody that you're trying to persuade into a contract. Quite honestly, doesn't mean you're manipulating them, but maybe you have some kind of exciting news about the market that you'd like to share. And so for you, that's a source of urgency. But here's the thing. That doesn't convey necessarily directly one-for-one exchange to your customer. The person with whom you're talking has got a whole set of circumstances and issues around their timeline. Now, remember, timeline isn't just calendar. It has to do with sequence. And so there's a beginning, a middle, and an end to everything, including someone's thinking about moving. They begin to think about it, and then they start taking maybe some action items, and then maybe they move, and then it's over. Beginning, middle, and end. When we take a look and start thinking about who you're going to be able to influence in your database, who are you going to be able to take their contract or their transaction, future transaction projection and compress the time, we're going to have to understand what their core needs are and what their core wants are. Okay, that's fine. Let's put that on the table. But then we're going to have to formulate kind of a discussion that's tailored to that person that is logical, but also taps into some emotional response. Urgency comes from two big spots, and that is fear of loss and a hope for gain. And most of us are not proactive thinkers, and that's not to say that we're losers. Here's why. Because being a proactive thinker means that you're going to have to let go of certain things that you have already, which might be comfort, it might be money, it might be relationships, it might be safety, it might be all these things that are really important. So it's not so easy to grab onto something new if you're holding onto something that you're comfortable with. Now, again, this isn't an ethical discussion about a moral discussion about you're lazy or you can't let go or you can't move forward. Here's why 90% of our decisions are defensive decisions and not proactive decisions. It helps keep us safe. If all we did all the time was just reach for something new and reach for something new and reach for something new, we would never have the rich lives that we currently have with the things that we currently have in our lives that we hold on to. Letting go of things might be important, but I think the fact that 10% of us are proactive and proactive thoughts, and I'm going to let go of something, but my fundamental core is going to stay in place. Okay, so just like the customers that you're talking to, you have the same kind of psychological staging. This is why prospecting is a little difficult, because you have to let go of something and kind of grab something new. Okay, urgency. How the heck am I going to build urgency with someone who wants to list their home in this coming year? I want you to break it down into seasons, seasonality. And I want you to start formulating a discussion or some talking points around each season: spring, summer, winter, fall. And I want you to be able to have a logical discussion with someone about why it might be better to sell their home in an earlier season. So I don't necessarily want you to start talking about, well, September is not a very good time to sell your house. What you want to do is you want to sell it in March, right? Because that's when people do it. So is that kind of a true statement? Yeah, there's maybe more people thinking about listing in March, and there's more people thinking about canceling their listing in September. I get it. But does that kind of apply to everybody that you're talking to? Why is it important? Why is that piece of information important to the person with whom you're talking, trying to persuade them to list their home early? What I want you to do is take some time and start gaming out these potential conversations. I don't want you to have this full-on strategy in your head that you're just going to push this person and you're going to make them do it early. What I want you to do is be able to offer them the choice of if they did it earlier, they would not be making the wrong choice. In fact, more people do list their homes in March, and it's seasonal, and there's more buyers in the market looking in probably the spring and the summer, and there's fewer buyers in the fall. Wouldn't you want to have access to more buyers? If you had access to more buyers and we had more showings on your property, do you think that it would influence the price of your home? So what are you doing? I want you to guide this discussion through a logical step of sequence, right? Why would it be better for you to put your home on the market a season earlier than what you're thinking is best for you? And the more conversations that you can have with your customer in this way, what it's going to do is help them start doing something really important. And that is they start placing their mind into the next place. Okay. So that's the number one thing we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're going to identify the season where they're most comfortable, and we're going to try to advance that season, and we're going to do it in terms of building urgency. Urgency lives in their head. Urgency is about fear of a loss and a hope for gain, right? So what could they possibly gain by listing their home early? Well, what you're going to gain is probably access to more buyers that are in the market looking. If we had more buyers, do you think that it would potentially affect the value of your house? Yeah, we get a bidding war, get multiple offers. Is this logical? Yes, it's logical. Now, what is the pain of letting go of their original date? I don't know. I have to ask them. So if you wanted to, given what we said, you still want to stick with September, can you walk me through why that's more important to you, right? Can you please walk me through that, right? Now, at this point, the customer, the person that you're eliciting a listing from is either going to be really direct, and they're going to say they have a specific drop dead reason. Well, you know, there's something happening in my life, and I cannot move until after September. Cannot do it, and it's a legal issue or it's some kind of issue, and it's a drop dead non-negotiable, right? So I hope that you have enough of a emotional connection with your potential listing that they're going to really be honest with you and say, look, I just can't do it, right? I don't have the money. I don't have a new place to go to. I don't have this or that or this. So you and I know that the money is not going to change, right? Unless they're getting some sort of windfall payment from somebody. And the fact that they need to find someplace else to live, well, heck, that's always going to be the case, right? So you can start whittling away at some logical small steps. What happens is once you start filling in some of the blanks and some of the small steps, you're going to get maybe a little bit of movement in the direction that you want. And the direction is, hey, I want you to list your home sooner. If you start getting a little movement in that direction, then you realize, okay, this person's not set on September. They're set on these 2 or 3 criteria have to be in place before they move. And I think it's important as a professional that you actually point that out to your customer. So you might say, so it's not September per se. What it is you're more concerned about finding another place to live. Is that true, right? Is it? Yeah, that's it. So if I were to find a place for you to live that you were satisfied with, like 100% satisfied with, would that change your time frame? Right? Would that change your time frame? I don't have to be so harsh and say if then close, right? If I found this, then would you move forward? Although, hey, it's better than not saying anything. And the truth of the matter is there's a reason why the if then close is in existence. It's because it works. What you're trying to do is qualify and quantify somebody's intention around the objection. You identify the objection. You find a reasonable satisfaction for the objection. If they say, well, no, I even if you did find another place and it was Shangri-La, I still don't want to do it, right? You got to probe deeper. You got to find out what's holding this person back. Okay. Urgency. Identifying urgency is one of the key things that you can do to be able to advance somebody into an earlier season than what they're expecting. Urgency is about a fear of loss and a hope for gain. And I want you to quantify those questions, and I want you to make sure that the person that you're getting the listing from, that they understand. Like, I want them to even say it out loud. Let them say it out loud. So what you're telling me is, if I find the perfect place for you to live and the money was fine, that you'd still wait. Is that, and that's fine. I just need to understand. Yeah. Okay. So I'm sorry, like, could you expand a little bit on that for me, right? Go a little bit deeper so that you can get to the root cause of what is holding them back. And if it's not logical, then it's illogical. The next big category that I want you to consider is education, right? So let's call it number 2. So you've got this thing where it's like, understand urgency, and now you want to compress time frame. And so you want to educate. You want to educate people around, of course, the seasons that we talked about. But what are some of the other data points that we could possibly educate our customer with regard to compressing their time frame? I know that, recently when interest rates went up, there were a lot of agents out there. It's like, oh, well, they memorized the high interest rate speech, which goes something like this. It says, well, I know the rates went up. Rates went up. And so I understand that. But the truth of the matter is, there's never been a better time to buy a house, and here's why. It's because, there's fewer buyers. There's fewer buyers in the market, and so now you get a much better selection. Number one. Number two, hey, you can always refinance it later, right? And so are those two reasons legitimate? They can be. And like I said, a lot of agents memorized those talking points, and they just automatically started spraying. But that urgency message is still got a fundamental problem. The urgency message is coming from you, based on your thought, your opinion, and your programming, not based on your consumer's experience level and their understanding of of not just the real estate market, but what is their own situation. Does your customer understand what their own situation is, what the impact is, and can their problem actually be satisfied with a real estate transaction? So, a word of caution: when you go to educate your customer, make sure that you're doing it in a really, really sincere way. What I want you to do isn't just say, oh, it's roses, it's roses. Oh, it's fruitcake, it's roses. It's fruitcake, it's roses. Because that's really not the nature of education. I want you to kind of like work it out in front of them, point, counterpoint. Well, for sure, there are fewer buyers in the market because the affordability index has gone down. However, there's fewer transactions, and we're already in a high price environment. We don't think prices are coming down because availability is still really tight. So yes, you're probably going to experience a certain amount of gridlock, but the truth is that the equity that you have in your home currently was built through time and capital appreciation. Prices went up. So you didn't actually work on getting that equity. Sure, I know you paid bills, you paid the debt, but at the end of the day, you got this big lift in your equity, and that was an economic condition that was outside of your control. Well, what other economical situations are outside of your control? Interest rates, clearly. So when it comes to owning property, possessing property, selling property, buying property, what are the things that are out of control of both the buyer and the seller and the agent? Nothing's in control. The only thing you can do is make good financial decisions based on your needs, your wants, your capacities, and what your go-forward plan is. As you're educating your listing, as you're educating the person who wants to list their house, don't just be a one-sided argument. Please don't do this, because that's not educating. What you want to do is you want to lay out pros and cons of going forward. Like, what are the benefits and what are the things that are maybe not so beneficial? And this is a much more professional way to plead your case, because people realize there's always a downside. Look, there's no such thing as win, 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 win. It just doesn't happen. In order for you as a consumer to get from point A to point B to point C, it takes money, it takes time, it takes talent, it takes effort. And everybody knows that in life, really, you get nothing for free. So look, I appreciate you did gain all this equity in your property over the last few years, but that equity really only matters if you have a plan to do something with it. Do you have a plan? If we were to sell your property today, do you have a plan for the proceeds of the sale of your home? Because if you're looking for a replacement property, I think that's wonderful to have a much larger down payment. Your payments are probably still going to go up based on interest rate if you have to carry debt. But at the end of the day, this whole scenario wouldn't even have been possible had you not made the choice to purchase when you did 5-10 years ago. So here's the situation. 5 or 10 or 15 years in the future, is the same thing going to be true? Yeah, the odds are really good. If we take a look back in history, nobody was buying houses in 2008 and 2009 because, oh my gosh, we had this horrible crisis that happened and the subprime rate, or subprime lending went upside down, and all this easy qualifiers went away, and all this artificial capacity to purchase went away. And yet, although it would have been probably the best time to buy a house, there were so many people sitting on the sidelines because they were emotionally attached to the fact that things are going down, things are bad, things are going down, things are going down, things are bad. Probably most of us missed one of the biggest opportunities of a lifetime to be able to purchase a house after the collapse happened in 2007, 2008. The people who purchased in 2009 held that property and for 5 years and then were able to refinance into a lower debt. My gosh, these people are golden. Why is it that we as people can't look forward for the next 5 years, the next 10 years, and realize that, look, it's going to be an exchange. However, at the end of the day, if I'm in the property that I want to be in for a longer period of time, that risk goes down. So long as I'm in the property, I can service the debt and hold the property. The truth of the matter is, there really is no real losing because I'm enjoying the benefit of the house while I'm making these payments. Another convincing argument around education might not have to do with the interest rate. Maybe it has to do with the value. So if you're in a property or working with somebody who's been in the property for 5-10 years and they're in an older part of the city, you might be able to pull some simple trend analysis to say, well, look, homes that are being built on the west side actually are going up at 10-15% annually, and properties that were more toward the center of the city, well, it looks to me like, they do go up, but it's 6, 7, 8, 9%. So let me ask you a question. If you're going to get a 15% increase in your equity or a 10% increase because of the market, number one, what part of the city do you want to be in? And number two, what price do you want to start with? So I know this is prognosticating future valuation a little bit, but choose your words wisely. There's a simple truth that if I'm in $1 million property and it goes up 10 or 15 or 20% in a few years, I'm making $200,000. If I'm in a $300,000 property, I've held it for so many years, and it's a $500,000 property and it goes up 10 or 15% in the next few years, great. I get 50, 60 grand, not 150. So it's just basic, simple strategizing with your seller around what are their financial goals going forward in the future. Yes, I understand in a high interest rate environment, you're going to make more payments. I get that. There's also fewer buyers. But the truth is, because you made choices before, you now have choices now. And making choices does have long-term consequences. And many times these are very, very favorable. Now, this is a much more difficult argument because we went from a defensive posture, like fear of loss, right, to an offensive posture, which means hope for gain. And we already know that most people are not thinking in a proactive way. So educating somebody around those proactive choices is just that. Educating them. Say, gosh, you know what? You could stay exactly where you are, and it's going to be really safe. Your payment's low, very incredibly manageable. Interest rate's low, and you're really comfortable. And as we had mentioned earlier in this video, what happens if someone's comfortable? It's going to be difficult for them to reach for something new because they want to hold on to something that they already have. Is this a bad thing? Absolutely not. It's a good thing. It just means that you're dealing at a more intellectual level with the people that you're trying to educate into a better future posture. As always, if you have questions about any of the content within this video, I'd love to help you out. Go and grab 15 minutes on my calendar using my calendar link. I look forward to helping you in any way that I possibly can. Have a fantastic day.